Just stop it. The run-of-the-mill, cheesy, humdrum bullshit status quo just tires me out. What fascinates me are the industry disruptors, the superhuman frontiersmen or women who go through hell to achieve their goals. Join me as we meet and learn from those mavericks, rebels, and business leaders that aren't afraid to piss off the establishment in order to make radical change for good. Sponsored by Johto PR, the disruptive anti-PR firm that murders your competition with cinder blocks and cyanide. This is Disruption Interruption. Welcome back, everybody, to Disruption Interruption. I'm your host, KJ, and we are here today to talk with someone who has taken the reins of their industry horse and steered it off the lame, tired path to venture into unexplored opportunities that have kicked the dust up on the status quo. Today's guest, although he doesn't look it, has over 30 years of building global brands, regional brands, and startups. He's been featured in Adweek, Forbes Inc., Huffington Post, Entrepreneur, Business Insider, whatever. Wow. Countless other blogs and podcasts. He's got over 325 international awards. I don't know how he's done it. He's Google's #1 rebranding expert. He's responsible for $3 billion in sales. His name is David Brier, and his alias disruptor name is Noisemaker. Welcome. David, you got the memo with we're dressed alike today.
Absolutely.
Well done.
I didn't tell you about the webcam that I had installed.
No, I didn't.
Fair enough. That's okay. Hey, it's all good. It's all good.
All good. So is all that stuff really true?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a couple of things. One is that I've actually been doing this. It represents my 41st year of doing this. So I've been doing this for 41 years.
Wow.
And all the rest of it is true, as well as the awards. I even have my bobblehead. See where my fingers? See that?
Yeah.
That's a bobblehead right there. Yes. You have a stupid little bobblehead.
You need to roll back there and get it.
Not to mention.
Oh my God. Keep this on during the podcast, please.
Okay. I'll keep
Wait.
Here we go. Here we are.
Okay, here we go. And he's got his own bobblehead. Okay, that's awesome.
Right there. Okay, there he is. He's loving it. He's excited.
Okay, great. So tell me, David.
Yep.
Thor's hammer, the biggest, most important ingredient to disruption. What is it?
The biggest, most important ingredient to disruption. This may surprise you, my answer. Paying attention in the first place. How can you disrupt if you don't even take a pulse of where the things are at? And that to me is the biggest secret. So many companies, CEOs, brands, thought leaders, etc. It's like they're just going to show up screaming really loud because they figure screaming loud, well, that's going to disrupt. Well, what if everybody else is already screaming loud? Bozo, it would be my response to that person who chose to do that. So it's paying attention first. It's going, okay, take a pulse. Where's stuff at? Right? Because you could disrupt smartly, you could disrupt stupidly, right? We both know, we've been in business long enough. There's no singular activity. Any singular activity can be done well or not well. It's like, oh, I'm a basketball player. Does that mean I'm good or does that mean I'm bad? It doesn't mean anything. It means I dribble, and hopefully I dribble voluntarily.
Oh, so paying attention in the first place.
100%.
I find talking to disruptors that it's the simplest thing that actually is the most profound, and it's what people overlook, right? So yes. Branding, you would assume, and I assume this in many industries, when I hear what disruptors are doing, I'm like, well, isn't that already being done? In branding, I assume that you're paying attention in the first place, but what's the freaking status quo that's happening right now?
Well, the status quo is build up your brand. And I'm going to say the status quo is as a stupid unquestioned cliche, because every day, I would say every day there's another little stupidity that's grandfathered in just because everyone says it. You got to build your personal brand. Is that true? Sure, it is. Does it mean? I mean, I see it. It literally shocks me. There's some people who are in online. I'm just going to leave it very, very, very neutral and anonymous. Who are online, and I'm not talking about Kardashian caliber. I'm talking about, folks that are business people, entrepreneurs, CEOs, who think taking pictures of themselves where they basically look like sort of a hybrid between a Victoria's Secret advertisement and Sex and the City, that somehow that's branding and that's building a personal brand. You know what? Tits and ass, while nice, are not, if that's what you want to be known for, is that going to get you the business that what's that going to do? That's like, that's like there was someone who introduced me because I was recently just completed a branding project for someone who's starting a podcast, and the brand evolution we did is remarkable. But I had to kind of look into this world of branding, and of course you have the Joe Rogans of the world, that cream of the crop, like upper crust. And then I was finding out, my client was telling me, this woman is like, she's got an offer for like, I don't know, $60 million or I don't know, some crazy figure because of her popularity. And I listened to her content. It is nothing more. It's like she swallowed 15 sailors and is now, they're all talking through her. It is just F-bombs, no quality, no virtues, no value added. It's like, if you just want to hear someone just talk like an act, well, go to your local bar where people are known to get really drunk and just listen. You don't have to log on here. You can just do it for no charge, be a fly on the wall. So that's the stuff that I just find. Don't disrupt if you're going to disrupt, you got to know why you're disrupting. And you're disrupting because blending in is a lousy option. Because blending in means you don't have much value and you don't have much distinction. And if you don't have much value or distinction, people will not consider you worth paying for. They will haggle you on price and all this kind of stuff. I mean, people don't haggle me on price anymore because they say they test it and they see maybe I might have enough money, and either they do or either they don't. And the bottom line is I'm properly framed at this point. Your brand should properly frame you. We must own our own dialogue and narrative.
That's the key. Owning your own dialogue and narrative. So what you're telling me is it's not just the old adage that people are still trying to do sex sells. It sounds like they're still trying to do that in their
100%,
branding.
100%.
Really?
100%.
100%.
I see some of these things and I'm like seriously?
Even for companies and
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it hit into the C-suite. I've seen it definitely hit into the entrepreneur suite, right? Those who are hoping to be like a great thought leader and author, thought leader, entrepreneur, higher profile,
Right.
suit. They want to be shark in the world.
Got it. So there's still, this is so old. Sex sells. That is so old.
Yeah, well, it's what do we know? What's the oldest profession? What? It's like we have that cliche.
We're still trying to brand that.
It's been around. It keeps on providing dividends. What can I say?
Well, what about with companies? I know that I've worked with you a long time, and I do think that they don't look at the landscape of what is really going on, and they try to brand themselves. They're branding their industry. I mean, it's like white noise, right? 100%.
Yeah, no, they're talking about stuff that everyone in their industry. I mean, I had this conversation with a very high profile client earlier today, and they said, "Well, David, we'd like to get your assessment on this." And I said, "Well, this looks like every other company in your industry." I said,
that is happening.
Well, I just said, It's not that what you're saying is untrue. It's not that what you're saying doesn't provide value, but it sounds and looks like everybody else. I carve it out so they really understand. You can have the most brilliant breakthrough, ingenious revolution in any industry has ever seen. But if you are talking the way everyone has been talking, and if you are walking the way everyone's been walking, and you look and you smell and you taste just like everybody has, I mean, the one thing that I tell people all the time is that people will not come to new conclusions with old information.
Oh, say that again. That is a mic drop.
That basically that your customers, clients, prospects, they will not come to new conclusions based on old information. So if we're sounding like old information, people's attention spans are so fleeting that they're not going to take the time. Let me just sit and make sure I dissected this well, so that I have been really responsible in receiving this communication as it was intended. It ain't happening. Bottom line is, it's our job to know, okay, people's attentions are fractured. So how do I get something to arrive in the midst of all that?
You know where I wish this would happen so much more is with tech companies. I mean, we obviously do a lot of work for tech companies, disruptive startups and so forth. And it is one of the biggest pain points that I find is that they want to sound like everyone else, but their technology is so disruptive. There's absolutely no way. How do you take something that's never been done before, and then you have to communicate it, because the people judge things based on what they already know? So what is the disruption here, David?
Well, what I do is I'll always say, let me ask you something. This hits them on the pain point. I say, let me ask you something. How much time do your salespeople have to spend to actually get people to understand that you're not just pretty much your own version of what they've already seen or heard 5, 10, or 20 times previous with your competitors? How much time are you guys actually spending to have to do that, where all the weight of differentiation is on the shoulders of every salesperson? And then when they go, and I say, how many times are you having to answer, why should we choose you? How many times are you having to answer, well, that sounds just like XYZ over here. How are you different? How many times are you having to do that? And you realize every one of those things is basically, that is a red flag that you blew it. You didn't take ownership of your story. You didn't take ownership of your differentiation. You didn't take ownership of your narrative.
Wow. That really slaps them in the face. Gosh, yep. It makes them responsible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm surprised you're not crucified for that.
No, they absolutely love it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
No one, what actually happens is the opposite of being crucified for it. Actually, what happens is the opposite, where they go, where you can almost hear the internal dialogue. How come no one has told me this before? You could practically hear it. You could see the entire collection of going through their minds. It's like a near-death experience. All the yes people that they had coming.
All the rewind.
All the. It's like, oh no, yes, Paul, you're right. Yes, Paul, you're right. Yes, yeah, no, you're totally right. You're absolutely right. No, you have a really good point there. You're really good. Oh, you're so insightful. You're really right. I'm sorry. I mean, I call those people out. I say those are assholes who didn't serve anybody. They thought they were covering their ass, and as a result, we're leaving you bare-assed.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. So when did you say that's effing it? You obviously had a point in your career where you said, I am done with this.
The bullshit?
Yeah.
I think it just started to, I started to see, I guess there was a little evolution. I started to see that I was really good at pulling things apart, right? So I was like good at saying, like I would ask, they would say something that they probably have said to 5 or 10 other people. And I would say, I'm just going to pause you right there. Why is that? Because I was very good at telling the difference between conclusions versus facts. Conclusions / opinions versus facts. I was just very good at that. And so I would just go, all right, I just got a conclusion. I don't really give a shit about their conclusions. In fact, I actually will be honest. I say I freaking hate their freaking conclusions. They suck because they're stupid. Such a high percentage of the time. They serve no one. So I'm like, now hold on a second. So then they drop a little conclusion thing in the middle of it, as though in the midst of a whole bunch of other facts. And I'm like, and I stop right there. I go, boom, hold on. That. Why is that? And it pauses them, and it makes them, all of a sudden, no one has asked them to think. They've been going on autopilot. They've been being allowed to go on autopilot. They've had people around them who haven't stopped them because they were going on autopilot, because whatever reason, because they were the boss, because they were the rainmaker, because they were the top salesperson, because they were the blah, 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 because they were the son or daughter of XYZ. Who gives a shit? So the thing is, I just was like, why?
And when you ask them why,
Yep.
that's a question that makes them have judgment, right? Do they just fall apart?
It makes them stop and see. The one thing that I know is this, and I tell people, I said, the bottom line is I can tell you the greatest, most ingenious things that will make you millions of dollars. But if you have not inspected it for yourself, it is worthless, because it's still my idea. And that's no value to anybody.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, that's true. So I'm like, I am putting their hat on in life. I'm putting their hat on as a business owner or an entrepreneur. And I'm saying, so my question to you, and that's, so I'm getting them to inspect. I'm like saying, so how is that? And if it's something weird, I'll go, or like it's like, well, every one of our salespeople knows that, well, we really don't, or I'll get something like this. I love this one. Well, we've got 10 different salespeople, and they all use different stuff to close a deal. They all use different stories to close a deal. I said, so in other words, in the eyes of your customers, if I were to go to 10 of your customers right now, I would probably be hearing 10 different brands in the eyes of your customers. And they're like, yeah. And I said, that's a really fucked up place to be. You know, I said, how the hell are you going to have a narrative? How could you scale on a foundation of where whatever you want us to be, depending on who we're speaking to? That literally leaves your salespeople have now become your policymakers for your company. Why? Because they're going to use they're going to use the line that closes the deal that gets them the commission.
100%.
That's a really terrible place to be.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%. So you've worked with a lot of big brands over your years, and a lot of startups and so forth. And this has evolved for you. You started to hear these conclusions, and you started to ask why. Is there a particular time that you just went against the grain in the industry, like your industry of branding?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I did about 4 months ago. I did my first live speaking gig in like 17 months, right? Just all the craziness. And so I said, guys, I said, I want to do the biggest lie in branding. I want to do, I want to put the focus on the biggest lie in branding.
Yeah.
And what I told them was, I said, the biggest lie in branding is that these cookie cutter solutions, these templates, and these specialists who are like us, focused on a specific niche. Well, we have a food brand that we want to brand, so we should probably get like a food brand specialist. I said, well, yeah, that's one way to approach it. I said, but now if you understand that branding is the art of differentiation and not the art of looking like another brand in your category, and I let that sit for a second, so let that settle in, right? If you understand that branding is what? The art of differentiation, and not the art of how do we blend in so we could be seen as one more option in the category that we're in. Who the hell wants to see us be seen as one more option? So so at every point I'm giving them a little thing to inspect and own. And then it's just, that's the thing that I love to do. I mean, I would sooner ruffle someone's feathers with truth then massage your shoulders with oil of lie.
That's another soundbite too. Ooh, that gives me the creeps. Have you ever really pissed somebody off?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he would not say he was pissed off, but that was just a continuation of his narrative of altering the truth at every opportunity. This person kept on trying to, kind of smile and convince me how I should work with him. This is earlier in my career, how I should work with him. And it was one of those times that I was going with my gut. I was like, I didn't like the way this feels. My spidey senses were all going tingly. I'm like, "Arr." And he's trying to convince me of how just, if we do this one, at whatever percentage he wanted of my fee, so much work. We're going to do so much work together. And for anyone that's listening, if you are a new entrepreneur, that is a load of shit. Never.
So true. So true.
That future work that you're promised, you will die waiting for it. Okay. Just trust me. You will die waiting for it.
So what'd you do?
Oh, I just was like, I kept it very, I didn't get combative, like to go head to head, which I could have. But I didn't have enough experience in business at the time to have that much confidence in my own stand. Mm-hmm. So I just basically was like, I basically told what was acceptable. I said, but I can't fit in the kind of commitment that you really need, you really want. Da, 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 da.
You massaged his shoulders.
Yeah. Yeah, well, as I just
medicine.
I just gave him a very gentle pedicure. It's like,
yes.
I'll trim your nails for you.
How did you disrupt your own brand?
I am a lifelong fan of music. So I love great music, and I love terrific movies. Really great forms of entertainment. Whether in whatever form, in whatever medium. But music, I was always a bit of a music lover, and so Joe Jackson, who basically he came out of the punk era. He was like the angry Brit. Out of the punk era, from probably the late 70s, early 80s. I even ran into him. He was not. He had that chip on his shoulder in real life as much as he did in his.
Did he really?
His song. Yeah, I mean, because he's like about 6'4". I mean, he's really freaking tall. He's very skinny and tall, and it was like, and I saw him, and I was like, oh my god! And I was thinking of like stepping out. I'm like thinking of the songs that I loved of his, and I stopped, and he was talking with somebody, and he obviously looked at me with a little bit of irritability, like, can't you see I'm talking to someone? He had that kind of vibe to it. I was like, oh god. I said, I just wanted to say how much of a fan I am, and then I got the hell out of there. Anyway, but Joe Jackson had written a book or something like that about the cure of gravity, and I always thought, what a fabulous! I love the cure for gravity. I what a brilliant concept, because gravity is like thought of like who can contest gravity, right? I mean, unless you go to another planet and you have different, but it's like this. It's this thing that whatever it says, we comply with, right? If we jump up, we're going to go down, etc. But I love the cure for gravity, and I thought, what a cool concept. So I got into the factor of defying gravity and rising above the noise. So I started to make that my own, and that kind of became like the foundation of, anybody that knows me, they might refer to me as the chief gravity defier, but defying gravity, but rising above the noise resonated with everyone. Who the hell wants to add to it? And that's what I always tell people. It's like, look, you have two choices. You're either adding to the noise or you're rising above the noise. What the hell do you want to do? And nobody has ever said, I really just want to add to the noise. Can you teach me how to do that? Can you show me how to do that? No one. Zero.
No one has ever said that. Tell me about some of the brands that you have really helped rise above the noise, because you've been very disruptive in your branding. It's almost as if You take something and you find out what the industry is doing that everybody hates, and
Mhm.
then you do the polar opposite of that. I don't know if that's your formula, but I've seen that in many of your stories that you've done. Give some of our listeners some stories.
Can I include you have on your
You
brand story?
could.
Well, I just think it's a great one that people go, oh my God. All right. Here's an interesting thing. So Karla Jo and I were talking, and she's like, hey, David, I need a rebrand. It's like, I need, and so we talk. All right, good. So we decide we're gonna do this together. And what I remember, I'm always fascinated what I learn, because at least 85% of the industries that I go into, I'm going into for the first time. So I'm having to learn. So I have the disadvantage of not knowing about it, so having to learn really quickly, but I have the great advantage of having a completely impartial viewpoint. So
That's
I'm
true.
not, so I find that every client, their knowledge is a double-edged sword. One is, it's great in that they can answer any question, but it's bad because they're also blind to seeing, what's important, what's not important, all these various things. So what happens
Amen.
is, when you and I spoke, and you were starting to share with me the insights and things that you were seeing, I learned from you that PR firms were basically disliked because they provided smoke and mirrors. Meaning that they overpromised, overinflated their deliverable, underdelivered, and they almost always locked you into a 12-month contract. And you could practically time it, that you would have, like, in 3 or 4 months, at the point where the client's getting really frustrated, they drop you a little dribble, a breadcrumb, and hope starts to be restored, and maybe another little micro breadcrumb, and then it's like, and then they turn into vapor again for a few months, and so they keep on dribbling, and only as it gets closer toward the end, it's a dance. I mean, it's practically choreographed to the month. So what happens is, I learn this, and then I learn what you do. And so, for those that aren't familiar, so I learned that Karla Jo comes from the crisis management side of the equation. Now, what does that mean? That means that, one, the shit's hit the fan. Two, you have to get it right the first time. And two, time is not on your side. You got to get this shit done, like, so freaking fast. That's a very specific skill. And if you get good at it, you're like a freaking PR sniper. But the thing that was
Ooh,
amazing
I like that.
was that
PR sniper.
was that Karla Jo, she applied that mentality to everyday PR. Whoa, we're talking game changing. We're talking like, holy shit. So I found that, all right, I'm looking. So I start looking at all these bits and pieces, and I'm like, oh, so when you walk in, the elephant in the room is, it's like, who can we tolerate the most out of all these, like, evil candidates, right? And so, is there a way to flip that? Is there a way to change that? And looking what everyone said, and they were all very cliche. All the competitors are very cliche, and so we came out with the factor of, like, basically providing that we're going to take a contrarian position. The first presentation slide to their presentation was, "We hate PR," which immediately melted the ice in the room of, like, and all of a sudden everyone was like, what? Well, what just happened? We took that line that divided your buyers with you. And so you're actually now on the same side of the table, saying the industry sucks as it is. And that's why we do what we do. And
That still is the biggest ice melter today.
Yeah.
Still,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's just like, that's an example. And when I tell people this story, because I do tell this, probably, I don't know, I tell them when people ask an example of, well, how do you do that? Because people just can't believe, they're so in the matrix, they just can't see outside. So that's one example. Another example is, I literally took, this entrepreneur came to me and he goes, David, I'd like you to brand my frozen ice. I'm just like, what?
What?
You want me to brand frozen water? I'm like, so I'm sitting there, and I'll always entertain something until I see that it's just like an impossibility.
Wait,
Uh,
this is an ice company. They sell ice,
they sell ice, bagged ice,
bagged ice.
bagged ice.
Is that
And
still like a legitimate business?
it's a legitimate, it's an industry that generates revenue. Is it a legitimate business? I mean, it's as legitimate
Well,
as
that's
possible.
what I mean. An industry that's legitimately creates revenue.
So the thing is I said, is there anything different about your ice? Is there anything unique? Goes, no, not really. Da, 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 da. And first of all, and I'll just say for the record, it's very funny. I would say 45% of entrepreneurs and business owners, when I ask them, is there anything different about, they're like, nah, we're the same as everybody else. And so I have to like start digging and digging and digging. And we always find that there are actually differences. Always.
They really say that.
They really say that. So this guy's like, not really. I mean, some people, there was some idea or something that someone said that, that maybe it cools faster. I said, cools faster. He goes, yeah. I said, can you get this tested in an independent laboratory with ordinary ice and your ice and let me know if that's true? He goes, sure. So about 10 days later, I call him up. I said, what did you find out? He goes, our ice actually does cool faster. I said, really? He goes, yeah, 33% faster. And I'm like, why? And it was because of the factor that of the shape of their ice. Their shape was cylindrical ice. So it actually had more ice surface. So it actually cooled the drink faster.
No.
Yes. And so the thing is so I find out, so we create ice rounds, cools 33% faster than traditional ice. And it became the number one selling ice nationally that people ask for by name. Do you have ice rounds? They didn't just ask, do you have bagged ice? Do you have ice rounds? So that's the kind of craziness that happens. I mean, I've done that with that. I've done it with chocolate. I did it in the security awareness training before security awareness training was a category with Know Before, which just recently had their IPO. And so Know Before, Human Error Conquered, created that brand. And the list goes on and on and on. I mean, anyway, those are a few that come to mind.
I think, but the ice story is my favorite because I've never heard that one before. Yes. Yeah. Ice rounds. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So what do you see like with the pandemic and the way people are communicating and all of these disruptors that are coming into the market? How do you see things changing or how they need to change in order to up the ante on differentiation and communication between brands?
I think that a lot of brands saw how vulnerable they were with one change, and let's take the disastrous aspect away from it. Like, oh my God, so many people died, and let's take that out of it and just look at what really happened. What really happened was you and I couldn't sit in the same office or restaurant. That's factually all that actually happened business-wise. And when you break it down to that fundamental, you go, wait a second, you're telling me that proximity, that my entire business is built on proximity. Well, that's a freaking hell of a vulnerable business, right? Now, granted, of course, businesses like hospitality with hotels, they're going to get slayed. But there were still a few who were like very entrepreneurial. There was one in the Midwest that turned the rooms into dining, like basically like little enclosed little dining things for a couple or a family of, who would like was spending time together. So it's like they converted. So they turned it into a special experience. So to me, that's the thing I look at. I go, wait a second. If your business is entirely reliant on whether or not you can be in physical proximity with another person, you already have a screwed business model, right?
Yes.
Because that is not firm. That is not a foundation. That like what? you're not diversified enough. You know, you're not diversified enough. You need to like, how can we do what we're doing and have it be done remotely? And how can we provide certain things electronically? How can we add more human touch without, you know, I mean, obviously, look, if you were in the massage business, you were screwed. Okay. If you were you were in the fitness studio, you were screwed. But at the same time, there's a woman who did my 9-week masterclass, and here's just an example of how this stuff can change. She had 7 people. She had a 7-person. She was in the Hamptons, so she had 7 people in her boutique fitness studio.
Okay.
She was struggling with it, but she'd been following me for a while, heard about my 9-week masterclass. And so she says, I'm going to actually, I love David. I love what he has to say. I always get value out of it. I'm going to do his masterclass. And this is happening the first half of 2021. Well, she starts doing it and she realizes she actually was undermining herself. If you looked at it casually, you say, "Oh yeah, you're a fitness studio. Of course, you will have been decimated by what happened with COVID." Blah blah blah. Sure, but she realized that she kind of bought into it and didn't get ingenious as quickly as she could have. So what happens is, as she's going through my masterclass, she's realizing she was undermining herself. She was going into agreement with what was happening. She was buying the expectation of, okay, lower your expectations. Well, during this whole time, she ends up getting rid of all of the employees, discovering after she got rid of the employees, all of her clients actually loved her. Her employees were actually a compromise and a dilution of her brand and her value as an expert. Now she has more income than she was making with the 7 people. She has more profits than she was making with the 7 people. She has a waiting list and is turning people away and is increasing her prices, all because of what she implemented, because now she understands and really gets her brand and is taking ownership of it. So that's the thing that I look at. I always look at, if someone's like, I can't, I'm like, bullshit. Bullshit. There always can be someone. Why do I know someone else can come along right now where you say that you can't? Someone's going to come over and say, I can.
Yep.
Every day of the week.
Branding today and the communications from companies and rising above the noise is really knowing your brand and what makes you you. Because obviously for her, she didn't know. So she expanded in this wrong direction, right? That's what you're saying.
Right. She didn't know. And the bottom line is, you know what? There's not anybody who is a business owner, a CEO, or an entrepreneur. I mean, unless someone is like sort of what I would call sort of a career CEO, where it's not really their business, but they're a hired. I'm talking about the CEO who has skin in the game, who owns it. I'm talking about the CEO who owns it. I'm talking about the business owner who owns it. I'm talking about the entrepreneur. So, it's no entrepreneur, business owner, CEO ever got into business who was not a rebel in some way.
That's so true.
So they're already defiant. They already disagree with the system. They already know and are proud of the fact that no one could hire them because they just don't fit. Right. Right.
That's right. Amen. Brother Ben. Shot a hawk and killed a hen.
And so the thing is you know what? Good. Well, how much do you need to lean into your rebellious defiance? More than you have been. That's the short answer. That's the
short answer. So you have a masterclass that teaches people the basic foundations of true branding, right?
Yeah.
Give me some nuggets. Give me something for our listeners. Give me a couple of like key datums that you don't have to give away the farm, but key datums that just blow all of the false data that people hear about branding.
Completely. So first of all, it's always interesting to orient people when I'm explaining the curriculum. I say, here it is. It's 9 weeks. And I say, you're going to get 41 years of knowledge in 9 freaking weeks. I'm going to work your ass off. I tell them, I said, I'm going to work your freaking ass. This is no free ride. And if you're looking for a quick little fix, you came to the wrong place. Okay. And so, so I say, think of this as me teaching you to be a chef. The first 4 weeks, I'm showing you your knives, your pots, your pans, your style of cooking, how you sear a steak, how you grill this, how you do that, your seasonings, your oils, your different stuff. I don't give you a piece of food until week 5, and that piece of food is your brand. That's the first thing I tell them. So they really like that analogy, because they go, oh. I say, I said, I already know someone in week 2 is going to go, oh, I'm ready to start working on my story. And I'm like, put down the pencil, back away from the paper, And so you're not ready yet. It's like, I'll let you know you ain't there. Okay. That's one thing. One thing that blows people's minds is I have a brand relevance scale that I actually put together that blows people's minds, because it's literally a scale of relevance, and there are points that people go, oh yeah, I should be great there, and then they realize, they look over here and they're like, oh shit, I'm only now beginning to breathe. Like, they might think that that's the finish line. I'm like, dude, you can now just start breathing. Okay, that's the point. Below that, you're dead already, and you don't even know it. And so that blows their mind, realizing how many shades of gray goes down. And they're like going, oh my God. They're always like, oh, I'm near the bottom. So that's very eye-opening. Another one that blows their mind. I go over, as I do in the brand invention book, I go over that there's 3 phases to branding. There's pre-sales branding, during the sales branding, and post-sales branding. There's 3 phases. Most companies only deal with 2 of them. They ignore the 3rd, which is actually where you can make the biggest impact and absolutely cement your loyalty and really reduce the amount of lost customers, because you're doing it after the transaction.
So what is that part of the branding called?
Post-sales branding.
Post-sales branding. David.
Yep. So there's 3 of them. And here's the other one that is like mind blower.
Yep.
There are 23 key differentiators, and most companies are using about 3 to 4.
That's in your book, right?
Oh, I know. That's in the message. No, that part's not in the book. No, because people go, oh, I know about, you don't know shit. They just don't get it. I have to walk them through so detailed so they really get it. So, but what happens is this: the 23 differentiators apply to each of the 3 phases. There's 69 different ways that you can actually differentiate. And for the companies that aren't even doing post-sales branding, so that there's already 69 that are gone. And for the others that are actually doing business, so let's say they each are like, let's be generous, and they're each doing 5. So they're doing 10 out of a potential 46.
Wow.
I mean, those are just,
they're barely walking. They're not even crawling. They're probably just sitting in the crib.
They've got scraped knees and holes in their shoes. They don't have diamonds on the soles of their feet. Nope. They don't have diamonds on the soles of their shoes, like Paul Simon so eloquently said. They're more like a bridge. They're like a bridge over troubled water. I don't know why I'm getting into this. I don't know why I'm getting into Simon and Garfunkel, but there you go.
There you go. David, what were you like growing up? Like, have you always been this rebel, like noise, not just a noise maker? Like, I'm going to be a different kind of noise. Like, who are you?
I was very curious and very interested. I loved art. I loved walking through the streets of New York and smelling the smells and looking at the art and looking at the architecture and watching street performers and artists and creation. I mean, I just always loved very much. I was certainly a rebel. I routinely got D for conduct in class. That was for sure. And I didn't think of myself as a rebel, but in retrospect, there was definitely, I was inquisitive, curious, and I did not agree to just agree. I was like, well, why is that? Why is that? Why not that? and not just like the little kid that we all go where you, no matter what you say, they go, why? Why? Not that kind of thing. But it was just more like I was curious. I mean, I was looking for spiritual and enlightenment. I was looking to Eastern religions when I was 15 years old.
No way.
So, so I was very curious. I was a very curious individual. So.
And did you drive your mother crazy?
Oh, my mother and I loved each other. I was her pride and joy because I was like I reignited, you have to, all right, let me give you context. So I had two brothers, right? And so they were 14 and 15 years older than me. I was the only planned one.
You were the only planned one.
I was the only planned one.
It's like backwards. They were older than you, but you were the only planned one.
Well, stuff happens.
That's right.
So, so the thing is, so like, you put this body part with that body part, and that happened. I mean, I know from my mother's sisters who are no longer with us, and my mother's no longer with us. But but the bottom line is I know from talking to them, they were like, we didn't know anything about sex. We didn't know anything about sex. I remember I think it was my Aunt Anna who told me that she was like, when she got married and her husband kissed her, she goes, am I pregnant? They were sexual wise, they were illiterate. They didn't know what made what happened. So it was because my grandparents were first generation immigrants, and from that culture, it was just something you didn't talk about.
So you were planned. So your brothers were 14 and 15 years older than you, and you're planned. And motherhood is just been reignited for your mom in a totally new way.
Mom is seeing her little babies are like getting like to the age where they're getting independent. They're 14, 15 years old. They're not, they don't need mom as much. They're probably a little more interested in girls and going out and hanging out and playing sports and doing whatever. So she's getting a little bit like lonely. It's like, shit, I would like a playmate. I'd like someone that I actually can like enjoy life with, and so because my father was less than optimum as far as a partner. And so the thing is,
let's leave it at that.
We'll leave it at that, So the thing is that she didn't have that camaraderie. There wasn't that creativeness that you enjoy when you do have a good relationship. And so she was like, well, so okay, let's see if this will help. Maybe help bring the family together, And so
that's where your branding started.
I guess so. I guess that was the beginning of my branding career right there.
Yes. So what's on the horizon for David Brier? Like you have a masterclass, right? Yeah. I know you're kicking ass on that, and you're going to tell our listeners where they can find you on that. But what's on the horizon?
What's on the horizon is there's a lot, not all of which I can disclose, but I will tell you that I'm trying to fit in. I already have the most killer title and forward to my next book, as well as the outline to my next book. But there's a part of me that's like, fitting it in schedule is one thing, and then there's like, are people going to dig it as much as they dug Brand Invention? Because people like really freaking love Brand Invention. I really have a strong hunch that they will, because it's kind of like it's almost like the human side. It's like the Brand Invention is the focuses a lot on brands and branding and how do you brand and this, that, the other. This is almost like the human components of branding. So it's a real interesting, different look. And it's like really from the heart. It's really from the heart. When you read, I know you love words. When you read the freaking title, your head's going to explode. And I don't want it to explode because I love the way your hair is. I love your hair. But
so you have a new book coming out.
that's one thing as well. And just the scope of projects. The scope of projects are big. I anticipate doing some more speaking gigs, and getting back into that groove of that, as well as there's a lot that's gonna be happening in the masterclass in the next. That's on the cusp of like a real freaking tsunami. That's all I can say.
Okay. Okay. So before you tell people where they can find out about your masterclass and you and so forth, give me some pointers of, you need branding when.
Totally. So, you need brand.
Like, you're a redneck when.
Right. Right. So you need branding when people are always nickel and diming you because they don't see value. You need branding when you are losing clients to your competitors because they can underprice you or outsell you. You need branding when nobody remembers your name. They love you. You can't remember the name of your company. You're just awesome. You're just great. You're fantastic with people, but no one ever ends up calling because they can never remember your stupid name or your forgettable name or whatever the hell. And so it's like, I mean, and to that point, being the music lover that I am, there's so many I love. I love discovering new artists and stuff like that. And so I have all these new artists, and then I play them once or twice, and because they're so bad at branding, I've forgotten, because my collection of my music library is so damn big. So I forget what their name is. Then I rediscover them like 4 months later. I'm like, oh, this guy or this gal's great, or this band's amazing. I was like, oh, I forgot all about them. And I'm like, how bad is that? You can't build a business on, oh, I forgot about you guys. If you hear, oh, I forgot that you guys, or here's a great one. I didn't realize that you guys did that. That's a good one. Or for those businesses that have been around for a while, like let's say you've been in business for 30 plus years, and people that you talk to keep referring to you as, oh, you're the blah, blah, blah company. And you haven't been doing that for 25 years. And you never took them along the journey of your evolution. And they're like, we haven't done that in 25 years. We're in the blah, blah, blah industry, And
you need to do a whole set of videos on these. You need branding when.
And lastly, I'll tell you this. Lastly is when you are married to your solution and not married to the actual solution of your customer. And the perfect example of that is, that's why there's only one stupid Blockbuster in Bend, Oregon remaining when Netflix took over the world, because Blockbuster was married to the wrong thing. Or you have a stupid, like Radio Shack. Was that the stupidest brand name forever? What value is it? I'm going to get some expensive stereo equipment. Where are you going to go? Radio Shack. No, it doesn't happen. And their service sucked, their brand sucked, they're out of business, or you're ignoring your greatest asset. Why did Toys R Us go out of business? Toys R Us could have turned it into a wonderland where kids go, ooh, I can try this stuff. And parents, what will they do? They'll take out their smartphones and they'll capture so-and-so, and you're allowed to do that as long as you tag Toys R Us. It's like DoubleTree. I think they do 83,000 warm cookies. They're little warm chocolate chip cookies every day. And it's the biggest thing that's talked about their brand that everyone talks about. Is DoubleTree a great hospitality experience? Not in my world.
No, but they have a warm chocolate chip cookie
every time you go in, and thousands of people every day will say, oh, I just ate my freaking warm chocolate chip cookie at DoubleTree, and it's like free PR. So the thing is like, if you don't have those little trigger points as part of your brand, you freaking need branding. If you don't have a hat like this, you need branding. If you don't have your own freaking
bobblehead,
you need branding. If you don't have your own freaking coin right there, a coin with your own identity on it, just like me. If you don't have that, you need branding. And it's not only that, but it's double-sided. Okay. This sucker's heavy. This is made out of cast bronze. Okay. I think I've covered all the ways.
I think you've covered them all. Thank you. So where can people find you?
Well, they would simply go, if they have not come across me, go to risingabovethenoise.com, RISING, risingabovethenoise.com. And there you can get my free ebook. You can learn about my masterclass. You can learn about anything you want. I have over 300 articles on branding, but they're not academic. They are like, hey, here was a so-and-so. I'm an entrepreneur like you. And here's what their stuff looked like before. Here's what it looks like now. Here's how we arrived at that point. I show you. I give you examples. You don't get that from other places. I give you examples. I explain to you the thinking behind it. So you become a fly on the wall of the brand, the gravity-defying laboratory.
And your masterclass.
And the masterclass, the bottom line, the best thing, I'm adding one little section to our website, because we've kind of had that as a separate initiative. But if anybody that's listening is kind of like, hey, I want to know about your masterclass, you DM me, hit me up on LinkedIn and say, hey, I heard that amazing podcast of Karla Jo's. Karla Jo, not only is she cool, not only is her hair awesome, not only does she have great listening skills, not only does she know the right places to laugh and the right places to smile, and not only does she have just general awesomeness in her space,
amazing art behind her,
and amazing art behind her. It's like she's also like where I heard about your masterclass, which I hope that you have spots filled left. And maybe by that time we will, or if you don't act fast, you may lose out and you may have to wait. But the bottom line is it's a masterclass mentorship hybrid. That's the thing that's amazing. You get me for 9 weeks. 9
whole weeks. I don't know if I could stand it.
You could stand it. You might have to give up coffee for after week.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
I'm feeling so buzzed right now. I don't even know that I can handle anymore.
Get out of the way. And so they can find you on LinkedIn, David Brier, obviously. Yep. Masterclass, they can find you at Rising Above the Noise.
Yep.
Okay. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
David, is there anything else you want to end with before we sign off? Anything else you want our listeners to know? Well,
first of all, I think for those that don't know, I think Karla Jo is the bomb. She is a PR rebel, and she is smoking hot in terms of her. She will set your freaking company on fire. All you gotta do is just give her the kerosene and get the hell out of the way. And so,
thank you, David.
But no, I mean that's basically it. And I would just say, if anybody who's listened to this, who's kind of like, yeah, maybe that was true for them. If you have that little disease called exceptionalitis, like, oh, you're the exception, let me set it straight for you. You bought it from somebody, and that is a load of shit. You're not the exception. Every company, every brand can actually rise above the noise and really be remarkable in its space, because ordinary doesn't do shit. Average doesn't do shit. Mediocre doesn't do shit. No one's going to pay you for that. You need to be rather exceptional and rather brilliant. And the bottom line is after 41 years, I can tell you for a fact, there's not a single one that I actually have found that wasn't brilliant. They may not have known it. It may have taken me slapping them upside their head a few times for them to go, oh shit, maybe we are kind of awesome. Yeah. It's there. Sometimes you need a little bit from the outside to shake it loose, but that's the message I'll leave with you.
Nice. Be freaking exceptional. Thank you, David.
Thank you, KJ.
That's it, everybody. Tell people to go disrupt their markets with some tidbit from the show. Thank you for listening to Disruption Interruption Podcast, where we transform lives, change consumer behavior, alter economics, and never accept the status quo. Ciao for now. Because we live in a highly litigious society, with America being one of the top litigious countries in the world, here's our legal disclaimer. This information is not intended to be a substitute for professional public relations or legal advice. Do not disregard seeking professional legal, healthcare, or financial advice, or delay seeking professional PR or legal advice because of something you have heard here. Contact an attorney to obtain advice on any particular legal situation or problem. Use of this podcast or our website or any of its social media or email links do not create an agency-client relationship between Johto PR and the user.